Troy Aikman.
Troy, we appreciate you being on. I'll tell you what, that intro, if you heard that intro, 70% completion. I told Danny I didn't have quarterbacks that could complete 70% in practice. You did it in a damn Super Bowl. Jesus.
Hey, with an intro like that, I may call in every week.
You're welcome anytime.
Hey, Troy, I got to set us up here now because this thing started off during the pandemic when I was doing them in shows in Naples, and I would be sipping on a little bourbon and smoking a cigar, and it was 5 o'clock, okay? So it snowballed, and Terry got a hold of it, and he started sending his bourbon in. So now it's 4 o'clock in Chicago, as you know, and we have a drink. And we are drinking somebody sent in some German beer that this will be the last one I have ever in my life, whatever. but my point is, we gotta start promoting. We're gonna help you out a little bit here. Now, this is the most popular show at this time in Chicago sports at this time of day on this week. Every week, and we got to get some of your 8 beer here, and we'll promote this for you. We'll get it going in Chicago.
You send me an address, and I'll ship it out to you. Right now we're only in Texas, but that doesn't keep me from shipping it around the country to various friends, and would love to get it to you guys so you can enjoy a nice cold 8 beer while you're doing your weekly show at 4 o'clock in Chicago.
Hey, that's beautiful. We had Joe Buck one time, and he said, he'd have a cocktail occasionally, loosen him up a little bit. To remember, hey, it's just sports. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what he says. It's that sounds good until you say it on a national podcast, and then all hell breaks loose.
That's right.
Hey, Troy, now I warned these guys. I says, now Troy's coming on. This is not having Terry on that talked about his parrot, his 2 pet parrots the entire time. I says, Troy is and Jimmy, when Jimmy was on, he says, okay, someone said, what do you got going, Coach? He says, well, what'd he say? I already got the beer in the cooler.
Yeah, the beer and ice in the cooler.
And the boat's running, so when I'm done here, so I says, Troy is football. He's still into the game and obviously so forth, but we appreciate it.
We very much
absolutely.
So you got to see Justin Fields up close and personal. We heard what you said on PTI yesterday that he has improved obviously from the beginning of the year. Can he improve enough? This is like the $64,000 question here. Can he improve enough in the next 5 games, in your opinion, Troy, to make Ryan Poles pass up Caleb Williams or Drake May?
Well, with the way the question's phrased, it sounds like the belief is that he has to show improvement in order to stay in Chicago, and I don't know. I mean, you guys are obviously dissecting his play and the Bears and everything that's going on a weekly basis. I'm just going off of what I've seen when I've prepared for the games that we've had of his. I thought early in the year, and it was around the time, maybe it was around week 2 or so, it was around the time that he had come out and said that maybe he was overthinking or was having too much on his plate in the game plan or what he was being asked to know. That game that I saw, he was not very good. The offense wasn't very good. But as I got ready for this game last Monday night, what I saw, especially the Denver game, I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was decisive with the football. Thought he was accurate, thought he got out the pocket and was able to run and do the things that he's able to do with his legs. But most importantly, I thought he threw the ball really effectively. And then he did the following week as well against Washington. He missed the time after the injury. And then when he came back against Detroit, I thought it was one of the better games that I'd seen of his as well in the things that he was able to do. Last week in our game, I knew going in, it was going to be a tough game for any quarterback for that matter, just because of the style of play of the Vikings. Now, he had the fumbles and the turnovers, and, you don't want to see that. But here's what I think in regards to whether or not they'll keep him or not keep him or go with the quarterback in the draft this year. My thought is they probably already know the answer to that. I don't know that what he might show them here at the end of the season is going to affect that decision. And for me, I'm just going off of what I see on film, whereas Ryan Poles and others, they're in the building with him on a daily basis. And for me, the quarterbacks in this league, they're all talented, and Justin Fields is very talented. It's the intangibles. It's all the other things that ultimately determine, whether or not you're going to have success, not to mention the players that you have around you. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this as far as what the Bears might do. They could bring in some really good players around him with the picks that they're going to have, and that would make him, or any quarterback for that matter, a better player. Or if they have deemed that, hey, maybe Justin's not the guy, then there's a couple quarterbacks out there that look like they're going to be pretty good prospects. But I've said this many, many times. There's always the best quarterback in the draft. It doesn't always mean that quarterback is a franchise quarterback. Now, what I've seen of Caleb Williams, I think he's special. But I haven't seen Drake May as much. But I hear a lot of people talk about him, and they believe that he could possibly be the number one overall pick as well. So I think those are two good candidates to lead a football team. But there's growing pains with that person as well. And I'm sure with Matt Eberflus, I don't know what his position is going to be going forward, but if he's coming back, is that something that he wants to weather? I think Dave probably has addressed that, and he'd be better equipped to answer that part of it.
Hey, Troy, what about the length of time a quarterback today compared? Terry talked about it was his fifth year before he really kind of came into his own. Do you see around the league, and when you talk to these guys, I mean, is the expectation, Justin's going into his fourth year? Right?
Yeah, this is year 3.
Year 3, so it'll be 4. Is the where are you at on that? Any thoughts on time frame now, maybe compared to how it was or whatever?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I do think a couple things. I think the league is less patient than they've ever been, but I also think that the NFL game, is more a reflection of what we see in college than it's ever been. And so with that, college players coming into the NFL, I think they have a fighting chance to have success, even though there's still obviously some learning curves that are involved in that. What Terry went through, he's right. It was about 6 years before he was really able to get settled and have an organization believe in him. It took a few years for me, not to mention, the players to get a really good supporting cast, that Jimmy was able to draft some really good players. But then also when Norv Turner came in, which was my third year, and that was when, my career began to take off. So I think that, let's just take Brock Purdy, for instance. If you put Brock Purdy in some other offenses, he probably wouldn't be having the success that he's enjoying in San Francisco. If you put some other quarterbacks in that offense in San Francisco, they likely would have more success than what they might be having in their current situation. And I was fortunate enough to have an offensive coordinator in Norv Turner, who, as I said, turned my career around, and others could have been in that position and they could have enjoyed a lot of success as well. So there's just so much that goes into the success of a quarterback. And sometimes I don't feel like this is the case in Chicago for Justin, but sometimes going somewhere else and getting a fresh start is a really good thing. But I do sense that the organization believes in Justin. He seems to be a confident young man when we've talked with him. I always pull for these quarterbacks because having been on the bottom early in my career, I know how frustrating the profession can be, and it's not fun. I don't care how much notoriety you have, how much money you might be making. It's not fun when you're losing and you're not winning football games. And so I pull for all of them, and I pull for Justin. But it's a big decision. We all know that. And, what you'd hate is if you pass on somebody and then that guy goes on and has this big career, or you pass, or you take the quarterback and then, Justin Fields goes on and has a great career. Those are hard decisions to make. And unfortunately, at the quarterback position, there's no guarantees. It's a flip of a coin as to whether or not someone's going to be successful. So that gives you pause as well when you're starting to make some of these, really organizational changing decisions.
You mentioned the name there, Troy, Norv Turner, that you've mentioned frequently throughout your playing career and then in retirement, just for how important he was to your development arc and the success you had as a quarterback. And here in Chicago with Justin Fields as a developing prospect as a QB, you got a first-time head coach and a first-time NFL play caller in Luke Getsy. And that marriage really seems pivotal in this stretch of Justin Fields' career. Wondering about your observations of just how the Bears offense operated the other night on Monday Night Football with the volume of screen passes there, but just the various ways that you've watched them try to use Justin Fields as Luke Getsy is kind of getting this thing figured out.
Yeah, I think, in the game the other night, like I said, just because of the Minnesota Vikings and the way that they like to come after the quarterback and were they going to be able to hold up in protection? Generally when you're playing a team with that kind of style, you are going to get the ball out, quicker than you would against other teams. I think there's been a lot that I've liked that Luke has done. I just think that game that we called was one of those tough ones, but the Bears, and I don't know, I imagine, I've not talked to Matt about his offensive philosophy and what he wants to do, but most defensive coaches that I've been around, they believe strongly in running the football and playing great defense and not turning the ball over offensively. And that's kind of been the formula for Chicago. And, but when you run the ball, and they do a pretty good job of it, and Justin's obviously a big part of that, but when you take the Minnesota game week 1, they ran for 160 yards or so, but they scored 13 points. And so just running the ball alone, if you don't get the big chunks, you're just not going to score a lot of points. So then all these games come down to the fourth quarter, and it's a play here or a play there that determines whether or not you win the game. So I just believe that I believe strongly in the run game. Nobody benefited more from a strong running game than I did during my playing career, but we also threw the ball extremely well. We didn't throw it as often as a lot of other teams, but we'd be number 2 in the league, number 1 in the league sometimes in yards per pass. And so we were efficient when we threw it, and we were able to create big plays when we had those matchups in our favor. And I think that's what's lacking as much as anything from Chicago. DJ Moore is an outstanding player, and he certainly has that ability. Darnell Mooney, he's kind of been a little bit lost, but he has big play ability as well. But they just haven't gotten a ton of big plays. And when you don't get those, you're in dogfights each and every week, and they have been.
We're talking to Troy Aikman here on The Score. Earlier you said that your guess would be that they've already made a decision on if they're going to be committed to Justin Fields. And then you also said that you do get the sense that the organization believes in Justin. I'm wondering if you could just expand on that. Like, what gives you that sense?
Well, I wouldn't misconstrue the two. In no way when I say that it feels to me that they have confidence in him, does that imply then that, I know something that I'm not saying, or that they're going to keep? I don't know. I've not had those conversations with them, and even if I asked, they wouldn't tell me. But I just feel like in conversations that I've had with Matt Eberflus and with Luke Getsy and others in the organization, I feel that they have confidence in Justin and in his ability and to help them win football games. How that plays out at the end of the year, I don't know. I just feel like if you've had someone in your building now for almost 2 years, with Ryan Poles as the GM and Eberflus as the head coach, and he's been there 3 years, I don't know that 4 more games is going to make up your mind as to whether or not he's your quarterback going forward. I think they've probably seen enough or been around him enough to know whether he's the guy or he's not the guy. Although I think, maybe Matt Eberflus's future might be dependent on what happens here down the stretch, although I don't know that to be true either. So without me being in the building and understanding exactly what the decision makers might be thinking, it's hard to answer some of these questions, but I just can't imagine being around someone for the length of time that they have been and not have a pretty good feel for what you're going to do. Not to mention, they've probably studied these quarterbacks pretty hard as well, Caleb Williams and Drake May.
Hey, Troy, just to kind of wrap this up here, when we did a couple of years ago, we did our little Jimmy inner circle to the Keys. These guys sitting right here. They came back and they saw it before I did. They saw a picture of all of us on the boat, and I really thought the conversation on this show was going to be, what did you do? Did you go fishing? What did you do on Jimmy's boat? All Danny here, all the head man here, my man Danny Park. All he wanted to talk about were they really Troy's abs? Is he really in that good a shape?
It was Troy. It was an
a little Photoshop.
It was an 8-pack. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's not possible. It's not possible.
It made Chicago. It was the talk of the city. Not that we were with Jimmy or not the boat or who was on it.
Well, Tony Wise picking up the beers was also
Somebody said hello.
Yeah, that was also noted.
Tony's
well, if that was the talk of Chicago, that makes me feel good. So,
what's your favorite memory from Jimmy Johnson's boat, Troy?
Oh man, well, we've done it a few times with Jimmy. He is probably my favorite memory is. Jimmy was. I'm sure Dave got into this story if y'all talked much about it. But Jimmy, he was trying to put the anchor down, and it got around his leg. And the next thing I know, I'm in the back of the boat. And it was really windy, 40-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, it was brutal. And he falls into the water, and he's swimming against the current. And 79 years old at the time. There was nothing any of us could do. I mean, we weren't jumping in to get him. But he swam back to the back of the boat, and I was worried. I was worried for him. And when he got onto the boat, I said, "Coach, I was worried about you. I wasn't sure you were going to make it, and I really didn't know what I could do for you." And he wasn't worried at all. So
yeah,
I'm amazed for a guy his age that he's in as good a shape as he is, and doing the things that he's able to do out there on that boat.
I'm sure he turned to Troy and said, "Troy, hand me a Heineken. Let's." But we got on the boat.
I told him I'd give him a lifetime supply of 8 beer, and he told me, Jimmy, he says, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah, right.
Well, the day started. The one trip we got on, and at 8:00 in the morning, he's handing out Terry Bradshaw's sunblock. Remember that, Troy? And it was like paste. It was like toothpaste. I don't even know if it really was sunblock. It had Terry's big picture on it, though. Oh, God.
Yeah, you don't want to be seen with that on your face, that's for sure.
Hey, Troy, we appreciate it, and thank you, my man. We know how busy you are, and I'll get you that address. We'll be talking up.
Send it to me, absolutely. You guys are the best. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Troy. You and Joe, best broadcast in the NFL right now. Thank you for the time.